headlines, sorting through the media bias, exposing the propaganda, and challenging you to use your brain. It's time to tap into the truth.
Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed time to tap into the truth. Welcome to tonight's broadcast. It is Monday, August the 5th, 2013, and we're going to start out this broadcast talking about what everybody in talk radio and what everyone around the water cooler is talking about this week, and that is the very real threat that Al-Qaeda is still real and still a threat that we cannot do anything about. Is that true? Is there anything that can be done to stop Al-Qaeda, especially on the Arab Peninsula? In the great nation of Yemen? The nation that Chandler Bing on Friends once had to go to in order to try and get away from an annoying girlfriend? That is our doom? That is everything that we have to be concerned about? I'm sorry, we have spent, that we know of, officially, on the record, we have spent over $2 trillion in order to put an end to Al-Qaeda. The occupier, during his re-election campaign, made horrendous statements about how GM is alive and Osama bin Laden is dead. Al-Qaeda's on the run. If you listen to certain conspiratorial reporters, they claim, they'll tell you straight up, that the U.S. government funds, runs, and operates Al-Qaeda. But here's the thing. We now have to seriously question. I went around talking to people today, and had I not had basically a dead battery for most of the time with my personal recorder, would have loved to have recorded these things. I thought about it after the fact. I didn't have time to get charged up at the time I was having the conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, even listening on other talk shows, nobody is buying that this is even real. But there are several aspects that we need to take a long, hard look at, starting with the fact that with $2 trillion officially, which means who knows how much money they've spent that we don't know about, we're going to shut down, close up, end, suspend operations within embassies throughout the Muslim world, across the Muslim nations, all over from Africa to Asia. We have embassies that have been shut down. We had 23 closed over the course of the last weekend. 19 of them are going to remain closed for the remainder of this week. Why? Why are we not able to provide simple security in an embassy? Now, I would very much love to sit back and give the benefit of the doubt to the occupier. Oh no, we're not going to have another Benghazi. We're going to put an end to it. We're not going to allow anything negative to happen here. We're not going to let any more of our people get hurt. But nobody's buying it. Nobody's believing that this is legit. I've heard everything from, this is just another excuse for us to be scared so that we need the NSA to keep spying on us. Please, Mr. Government Man, take our rights away. Protect us. Is anybody else getting tired of the same song and dance? I mean, seriously. What is anybody thinking if they don't question it? How is it that we have moved to a point that it is so easy for anybody to be cynical of this? I mean, it's not even our first instinct for most of the people I've talked to, and it wasn't my first instinct to take this at face value and believe that they were really trying to protect people. Here's another distraction. Please don't look at what we're actually doing here in D.C. And oh, by the way, we've lied to you over and over again about whether or not we're spying on you. Oh, no, we're not spying. We're simply collecting data. We're gathering intel. Spying, when you're in the spy business, means something very different. We're just gathering intel. We're collecting data. We're not even really seriously looking at it right now. We'll use this to build a case later, in case we have to. Then they come and they say, okay, we lied. And then you're like, well, we caught you and you said you lied. And they're like, no, we didn't lie. We weren't doing that in the first place. What? Nobody's buying it. Nobody thinks this is real. And I don't know what to think. And that's the problem. I would love to get the benefit of the doubt to these people in the White House, but I've seen too much to do it. I mean, the man's a criminal, and the question of his eligibility to hold the office is still in question. And every time he's given an opportunity to honor the Constitution, to put the American people first, he has failed to do that. You have a group of people in D.C. that are in the Democratic Party and in the White House that are telling you that if you try to defund Obamacare, that means you're going to shut down the government. They're not willing to protect you, the American people, from the negative effects of a terrible program like Obamacare because they're convinced it's what's best for you. But they're going to close down embassies around the world. Embassies that are in parts of the world where we need people on the ground. You go and talk to any Marine who's had any connection with part of our foreign national protection services units, and they will tell you, oh yes, we can secure our embassies. First rule of international law, in case you've forgotten, in case you don't know, in case you never knew, in case you come out of the public school system right now and haven't been taught, United States embassies and consulates and compounds such as that are sovereign U.S. territory. The same rights and privilege we extend to every other nation that we allow to put an embassy here in the United States. So we have the right to protect it. We have the right to put our personnel. But we instead are going to choose to show weakness, to show fear, to let the terrorists win. Because that's what's happened. Make no mistake about it. There are no two options here. Either A, Obama is still so busy trying to play politics that he doesn't want to be seen as having done anything that might resemble a repeat of Benghazi. Because he definitely doesn't want anybody bringing up Benghazi again, right? So we show weakness and shut down. Okay, we'll protect the people by get them out of there. Hillary Clinton, when she was Secretary of State, said repeatedly she did not want to add additional military security to our locations, our consulates, our embassies, especially in Muslim nations, because there was a perception that the uniforms meant we were being hostile and aggressive. Well, perhaps if that perception was really there, no one would have attacked the Benghazi consulate, and 4 brave Americans who were doing their jobs, even if it meant disobeying orders in the case of the 2 former Navy SEALs, would still be alive today. Perhaps we wouldn't have the Benghazi survivors being scattered intentionally by the Obama administration, being given new aliases, essentially being treated like they're in protective custody, just so that the media and Congress can't get a hold of them, to interview them, to question them, to subpoena them, to have them under oath and testify about what they saw and what happened there. That's why people aren't taking this at face value. But I mean, I've even talked to some folks that, I speak to them. I don't necessarily consider them friends. We have our little debates from time to time, but they're liberals. Very liberal, in the case of one of them. And even they weren't buying this. It was their first instinct is, this is just political theater. This is about distraction. This is sleight of hand. But here are the things that we have to keep in mind. Everybody that we heard come out today, once the discussions started about how credible this threat is and how specific this threat, although I have yet to hear anybody mention any specifics about it, and if it really was so very specific, why are we closing down so many different embassies? You can't tell me that there's a credible threat for 19 different embassies. And if you look at how it's being reported, there's heavy emphasis from the mainstream media of how scary this is. You've got congressmen, you've got members of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, including the chairman, out there saying, ooh, this is the worst thing to happen as far as threats and as far as how credible these threats are, since right before the September 11th attacks on the World Trade Center. Al-Qaeda's back, and they're scarier than ever. Our nemesis, the mysterious, unorganized boogeyman that is Al-Qaeda, that we're arming in Syria, for crying out loud. Oh, but you see, these aren't the same Al-Qaeda. The Al-Qaeda in Libya and in Syria, they like us now. They're okay. Well, of course they do. We're funding their military capabilities. We're giving them freaking rocket launchers. And if you don't think we're going to start seeing airplanes shot down out of the sky over Western Europe within the next 2 years, then you've got your head buried in the sand further than the occupier has his head buried up his ass. I hope I'm not offending anyone, but I'm really hot about this, and all day long I've just been getting hotter about this. It doesn't make sense. We're projecting weakness, first and foremost. We're dealing with an enemy that only respects strength, that only fears for themselves and their propagation when they are in numbers that are less than 3% of the population of wherever they're at. They get to that magic number of 3% and suddenly they're making strong moves to try and take over. Don't believe me? Look at the numbers throughout Western Europe right now. Look at the numbers throughout Eastern Europe from 30 years ago. Look at the numbers throughout Asia. Look at the numbers throughout Africa right now. When the Muslim population is below 3%, you barely hear a peep out of them. There's no calls or demands for Sharia law to be instituted in a foreign land when they're less than 3% of that country's population. There's no protest. There's no beheadings in the street. It's only after they reach that magic number of 3%. And as that number continues to rise, the incidences of public violence increases, the incidence of the demands of Sharia law increase. You may very well see these people on the streets wearing vests and fezzes and with sticks of dynamite underneath those vests, or you may see these same people in fine suits driving fine automobiles here in the United States and in major metropolitan areas in Europe as they promote the religion of peace, which actually has a lot more in common with true so-called progressive version of liberalism, which is not a religion, but a cult of death. If you do not convert, if you do not choose willingly to join them and believe what they believe the way they believe it, and subject yourself to a life of servitude to the imams, then you must die. Islam is not a religion. They have a set of beliefs that you're supposed to follow as a religion, but it's also an economic ideology. It is a political ideology. It is a plan for totalitarianism that goes beyond the veil of anything we've seen on the planet outside of Islam. If you don't know this already, you need to do your research. All you have to do is take the 3 most holy books of Islam, read them together as you're supposed to if you're in the faith, and actually put them in context instead of letting people like Care take certain verses out of context and make you believe that there's the possibility that, hey, maybe we just don't understand. If we didn't understand, we wouldn't see this same scenario playing out over and over again. So is there a real threat? That's the problem. Every single person who's come out and said, oh, yes, this is scary. This is scary. No, this is the worst. It's been in decades. We need to be afraid. Hide under your bed. Because the Al-Qaeda boogeyman is in your closet right now. Look out! But every single person who's come out and said this are the same people that have been defending the NSA. And some of them have even done so today as they've come out in the mainstream media interviews and said, this is a prime example of why we need the NSA doing the job it does. Well, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but the NSA does not need to be existing if their primary purpose is to violate our constitutional rights to reasonable privacy. Oh, you don't have a right to privacy. What about your right to unreasonable search and seizures? What about the concept that you are innocent until proven guilty, not guilty until after they've spied on you for 40 years, they eventually decide that you've proven yourself innocent? Because that's the world we're living in right now. There's so much wrong with this that it stinks to high heaven. And that's why so many people don't want to take it at face value. And I'm telling you right now, I don't think you should. I think the people that are doubting it and questioning it are right to do so. Because we know we can't take the word of the occupier. We know we can't take the word of the State Department. They're still covering up the Benghazi crap. We know now that they are hiding out the survivors, trying to keep them out of reach of Congress's subpoenas. We know Hillary Clinton lied about Benghazi. We know that General Petraeus was blackmailed into resigning. Again, also to try and keep information about Benghazi out of the public domain. If you have a credible threat and you think these embassies are a target, you do not project weakness and close them. You supplement the security. We have complements of Marines that can hold a compound, just like Benghazi, for weeks without reinforcements if necessary. And we also know, thanks to our capabilities with helicopters and other forms of aerial transport, that it would not be necessary for these Marines in a small contingency to not have reinforcements, to not gain additional supplies. The Benghazi incident itself took place over the course of a multitude of waves, and the second wave that eventually broke through took hours with only a few people actually fighting them back. I believe the total number is 6, according to the official story. I've heard tell that it was less, maybe even only 4. If you can have fewer than 10 people hold a compound like that from storming mobs for multiple hours, then what could you do with a contingent of Marines, fully armed, fully loaded, and capable of receiving reinforcements and additional ammunition and supplies as needed? You can hold those compounds, ladies and gentlemen. That is what you can do. If you believe for a second that there are enough people in Yemen that are actively involved with Al-Qaeda and would be willing to storm a Yemenese embassy and try and keep coming at you and keep coming at you and keep coming at you, if we know it's coming and we're prepared for it, then you're mistaken. The entire population of Yemen could not do it. And I promise you, the entire population of Yemen is not interested in this. Most Yemenis, they don't want to go pick a fight with us or anyone else. They want to be left alone to live their life. But the problem is the people with the guns, the people with the bombs, the people with the loud voices, and the calls of the faith. So what do? We close down. We close down. We are seriously closing down. Is it any wonder the world thinks we're a joke now? As long as the occupier is setting his little bahookie in the Oval Office, or is on vacation from the Oval Office, as long as he's supposed to be carrying the title of president, then the rest of the world not only is not going to respect us, but they're going to laugh at us. Until Iran believes there are serious ramifications of pursuing nuclear weapons, what are they going to do? They're going to keep spinning the centrifuges. They don't worry about us, and they don't think Israel will act alone. Well, they're wrong about that. Israel will, if they feel pushed to have to do it. The problem now is Iran's figured out the best way of trying to make sure that a single nation on a single attack isn't capable of knocking out their full capabilities in their development of their weapons program. So while Israel will certainly be willing to act alone if necessary, the chances of them being completely effective are far less than 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And the worst part is these sanctions that the Democrats are so pleased about. This is how we're dealing with it, and the government is buckling. No, they're not. The worst part of this is it's only the people, the citizens of Iran who are suffering. Again, most of which aren't happy with what their government's doing. Not that they got any support from this administration back when they had the protests in the street. When Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, was re-elected. Quotation marks around re-elected. There were protests in the street. I don't know if any of you even remember that now, because it certainly isn't talked about in the mainstream media. And it seems like most Americans have such an extremely short memory these days that I don't know if they do. There was a lot of pressure being put on by conservative members of our government and conservative media sources to try and get the White House to condemn the squashing of the protests in the street. Nope, no real condemning of it came forth. Nothing was really said. That was the end of it. What does that tell you? Well, again, no cojones. That's the message that gets sent. Oh, America is a freaking paper tiger right now, baby. Why? Because the occupier either A, is secretly, not so secret, rooting for his Muslim friends, or B, just another Democratic wimp who thinks that we've got to hug it out with our enemies, because they're really only our enemies because we've done something to them and we just don't understand. Here's what isn't understood. Tree huggers are idiots. If you honestly believe that trees and animals and puppy dogs should come before people, you're an idiot. If you honestly believe that somebody who wants to kill you in the street because you don't follow the Prophet Muhammad can be reasoned with, or you can hug it out with, then you're an idiot. If you think you can give these people guns, weapons, tanks, advanced military aircraft, and everything's going to be okay, then you're an idiot. I hope you're detecting a pattern here, because if you are in on any of those things, then you're an idiot. Seeing as I know most of the people listening to this show know better than all that, so I'm preaching to the choir. But what the hell are we supposed to do when we can't seem to get through to the idiots? Best case scenario, the occupier really is trying to protect American lives by closing these embassies down. But in that best case scenario, if we want to believe this highly credible and extremely specific threat that seems to be all over the freaking world for a specific threat, he's projecting the exact type of weakness that continues to make us a target. He's signaling to the terrorists who want to kill us that, hey, guess what? You've scared us! You win! Only, we're not playing with people that say, once you've won, the game is over. Au contraire. Once we've won by scaring you, once every American believes that boogeyman is coming out of the closet, oh, it's Al-Qaeda, they come harder. They start blowing up more stuff. And guess what? Now we're going to have the very real possibility that the weapons they're using to blow us up were either A, bought and paid for by American taxpayer dollars, or were gifted by the American government. Period. Which actually means they still were bought and paid for by American taxpayer dollars. You now, as an American taxpayer, are financing your own explosions. You're financing the terrorist attacks that will be hitting us soon. Why? Because if this is the best case scenario, and Obama really is trying to protect American lives, how emboldened are these people going to be? If you haven't checked out the website, one of the videos on the homepage is a report showing several Middle Eastern Al-Qaeda-linked people crossing our southern border. Why do you really think so many Democrats don't want to close the southern border. It's not about getting Hispanics in here and voting illegally and keeping them in power. It's so there's an open gate so that anybody with a vendetta against this terrible, terrible, imperialistic nation that's the root of all evil, that's done everything wrong, the Blame America First crowd, so that they've got this door open so they can come in. And they can come and get us. Us, the mean, old, nasty, conservative Americans that actually believe in baseball, apple pie, grandma. We live in a time where actually, since I mentioned baseball, that we really can't believe in baseball anymore. Look at what A-Rod did. His fine and the suspension finally came out today. Not that I want to waste any time talking about A-Rod or any other baseball players that can't seem to keep things fair on the playing field. I don't want to waste any particular time going into any of the other news items of the day. And there were other things in the news today that are worthy of mentioning and probably will make another broadcast later. But it is absolutely insane. But most people don't even believe that there's a threat. From all the folks I heard calling into other talk shows today, from all the people I talked to myself, from all the people I overheard other conversations, the overwhelming majority of opinion out there seems to be that this is just another distraction from what's already going on, and most people believe it's an attempt to convince us, the little people, that we need the NSA to continue doing what they've been doing, keep spying on us. Alright, I've got to take a quick break, and when I come back, we're going to close things out. Take care of a little bit of business here locally, a little bit of housekeeping, and then we'll finish with the topic. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Tap into the truth. Check us out at tapintothetruth.com for our latest blog post and for links to all of our past broadcasts. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and to follow us on Twitter. That's Tap Into the Truth right here on Spreaker Radio.
Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. Please head over to Facebook. Like the Tap Into the Truth page there. Happy to report had a sudden surge this weekend of likes of the page. I think it had a little bit to do with our blog talk show broadcast this past Sunday, just yesterday. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, by the way, please go ahead and check it out. We had Roy Parison, a candidate for the 16th Congressional District in California, spent a little bit over an hour, in fact, almost an hour and a half with us, going over various aspects of his campaign. He is exactly what the framers had in mind when they were devising the House of Representatives. He is an average, everyday, normal working American, somebody who's decided to answer the call of civic duty, responsibility, and someone who's also standing up because he's tired of the little man not having a voice. He's tired of career politicians making false promises and never following through. And most importantly, he's tired of the Constitution being ignored every day, and he, much like me and a lot of other American patriots that I talk to every day or that I interact with on social media sites from TeaPartyCommunity.com or PatriotSpace.com or even over at FreedomWorks, I have interaction with these folks. We don't ever want there to come a day where we're talking to our children or our grandchildren and we have to try to explain to them what it was like those last few days where America still had some semblance of freedom. That's why I do this. That's why he's standing up and running for Congress. That's why a lot of other patriots are making their voices heard. And you, as a listener, I challenge you to also go out and make sure your voice is heard. While you're at it, also go ahead and follow us on Twitter. Tap into the truth on Twitter. Please check out the website. While you're at it, I'm going to ask one more time in this broadcast. I'll probably be asking quite a few more times total. Take the time, hit the button, follow the show here. Following the show here gets us one step closer to being on iHeartRadio, by the way. Need a lot more followers for that, so please follow the show here. And while you're at it, if you do go check out the Sunday broadcast of Blog Talk over Tap Into the Truth, follow the show there too. A lot of great coverage. I have great guests stop off on a regular basis. And also, new followers are, there's one more month where you're eligible for our contest. Our most recent winner was Mary. I'm not at liberty to divulge her last name as of yet, but she's become a regular listener at the Blog Talk show, and she is highly active in the chat rooms, and she got her prize back on the way to her today. So, Mary, if you've started following us over here too, and I think you have at this point, I certainly hope that you enjoy the prize pack and that you'll be telling everybody what a great prize pack it was and why they should follow the show here for their chances to win. At any rate, that's enough for the housekeeping. Well, let's get back to today's topic. We've got about 7 minutes left in this broadcast. And so far, I have focused on the projection of weakness, offering up that best-case scenario. The hypocrisy that's involved with closing these embassies is mind-boggling. The way the mainstream media is reporting this story is mind-boggling. It's not unreasonable that so many people aren't just buying into the little story here. Oh, there's a real incredible threat. It's worse since 9/11. That's why we need the NSA. But ladies and gentlemen, the problem with what the NSA's been doing is they're spying on us. They're not monitoring any transmissions or electronic communications in foreign lands. There's no foreign nationals that are being tracked through these programs unless that's who we're communicating with. They might get caught up in it. If we call somebody from Algeria, okay, well, now there's an Algerian that's part of the metadata. But unless we're doing the calling, it ain't happening. They're not monitoring these people. This is about keeping an eye on us. What I believe this little stunt is about? Number one, it is another attempt for the occupier to appear presidential. Unfortunately, it has to be orchestrated. He can't seem presidential on his own, certainly not through behaving as though he's actually the president. whether he's legitimately in the office or not, he is supposed to be the person holding that office. As such, you would expect him to occasionally govern instead of constantly go around and, what am I doing? I'm campaigning. I'm community organizing. Why? Because I don't know how to do anything else. I've never done anything else. I'm Barack Obama, and I just want you to vote for me. And then I'm going to talk tough to the Republicans, and while I'm screwing the American people. Yeah, I'm going to screw them good. They're going to like it. Because I'm Barack Obama. Or, wait a minute, I'm Harry Belafonte. I don't know. Michelle, what alias am I using this week? Seriously, for real, what is the deal with people blindly accepting this crap? Well, that's just it. They're not. So many people are not buying this. And they shouldn't. But when you even hear people that you know are card-carrying, Kool-Aid drinking members of the Democratic Party that are like, what's up with this? Even they still have some level of pride in being an American. Even though a lot of them are part of that Blame America First crowd, you don't see them wanting to move to South Africa. They stay here. They're not moving to Holland. They stay here. Why? Because there really isn't a better place to be in the world. Although, what they really don't seem to understand is they and their friends and their political party are working really hard to make it the case that that's just not true anymore. There's a day, if we leave these people in charge for very much longer, the day is coming when it really will be better to be somewhere else. They're pushing hard to bring us down to a third world country mentality. And right now, they're winning that fight. Don't doubt for a second. That's what Obamacare is about. That's what every excuse. If you need proof that Democratic policies do not work, look at Detroit. If you need proof that it's a bad idea to try and offer Detroit a federal bailout, look at the list of other cities that are waiting to see what happens. Los Angeles, New York. There's literally a ton of other cities that simply don't have the tax base to pay for all the programs they're doing. They would love to see Detroit get a bailout because that means, at least in their mind, that they're next. Why are we closing embassies all over the Muslim world? Is it out of fear? Is it political theater? Is it an attempt to further hide documents of people and personnel that still know something about Benghazi? I'm not taking my tinfoil hat off on this one, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to call me a conspiracy theorist, that's fine. But this isn't theory. This is conspiracy fact. Benghazi has been covered up from the beginning, and it was simply because we were arming Al-Qaeda and sending them into Syria. The proof is now out there. The memos have been leaked. There is no question. There is no doubt. We were violating international law and we were arming our enemies. The occupier is guilty of treason. It's no longer enough to call for his impeachment. This man needs to be imprisoned and face due justice for treason. And so does every other co-conspirator, from Joe Biden to Nancy Pelosi to Harry Reid to Barbara Boxer and any other freaking Democrat that ever voted for something to find out what was in it. Ladies and gentlemen, last few seconds of the show. I hope you can excuse my anger over today's broadcast, but please, don't take my word for it. Definitely don't take their word for it. Take some time, do your own research, use your brain, and understand it's going to take some work in order for you to tap into the truth. Have a great night, everybody. Good night.